Hey, movie fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Uncharted Media Podcast. As you could tell by that fancy schmancy new intro, it's October, guys. It's spoopy season, so that means new show intro, and all month of October, we're talking about spooky stuff. There's a lot of topics we could have talked about this month. We could have talked extensively about movie theaters, which if you haven't, go back and check out our discussion last week with special guest Heather on the fate of movie theaters. Had we known, we would have just waited a week because now it's even more doom and gloom. Oh, I'm so sad inside. Or there's there's something else related to our first news topic. That in and of itself could be a whole discussion. But no. All of October is going to be spooky related things. So our first discussion, in honor of the Haunting of Bly Manor dropping on Netflix this Friday. I'm hearing incredibly good things about it. I'm so excited. We're going to be doing the best haunted house movies. So our only criteria for this, it's a haunted residence. The residence itself has to be haunted. I'll say residence because not all of them are houses to kind of put that out in the ether. But Josh, how you doing tonight?
I'm chilling, man. It's been a weekend. Still recovering from the craziness that was our jobs. But
You want to
hey, man,
shamelessly plug that again?
everybody seems to be reacting pretty well to them. So
Let's shamelessly plug that again. If you haven't, go watch our pitch off for Fantastic Four.
absolutely, man. And just keep in mind there's two videos. I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, I think both pitches are really solid. I mean, I obviously looking back now, it's like hindsight. It's always 2020, at least for me. Uh, like there's definitely some things I've missed, and I feel now that I could go back and change, but
And I don't want to
it's
be
okay.
mean, but I feel like I've called you out on most of those, like off mic. Just been like
Yeah,
more just
no,
kind of
yeah, you
trying to
did.
get your
No,
brain
it's like,
process.
and it was especially like rewatching it, because I went back and watched both of them just to kind of get an idea of what we both put out there, and there was certain like what when you the stuff you called me out on, and I was like, and then there was some other things I was like, oh man, it's one of those like I talk a lot of crap for Marvel and like other like directors not taking things as far as maybe it should or could go, and then I didn't take certain things as far as they probably should have gone. So it is what it is. It's the first pitch off for us, so it's something completely new for me. So it was. I thought it would, all things considered, it went pretty well.
I will interrupt you real quick. I will say we will be doing more pitch offs, but don't expect another one anytime soon because those are so research and labor intensive. And Josh and I were talking about this off mic. Of the next one will be easier because Fantastic Four, we kind of know them, but a lot of research goes into it. But also, it's a matter of there's four of them, so you kind of have to divvy up the time. Whereas if we did like a Nightwing, which don't expect that anytime soon, because I kind of want them to tie into something. But rest assured, that Nightwing run is ready to go whenever we want to do that. But like a Nightwing or Superman, or even for like Josh, like a Green Lantern one, that'll be easier to do because it'll be like one specific character. But we will be doing more pitch offs. Just don't expect them anytime soon. But you can expect some smaller short form videos by the end of the month. I have an idea of what I want my video to be. No, you and I have talked about what yours might be, Josh. But yes, they will not be to the scale of pitch off. Those will be every couple months because those are much more work, but there's still a lot of exciting stuff coming for Uncharted Media.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But yeah, no. Other than that, I'm just trying to recover from that, and there's been some weird like work stuff, but other than that, it's been a pretty chill week. What about you? You been doing all right?
Yeah, I'm watching some stuff. Not as heavy of a recovering process as you, because I tried to plan things out a little bit, because I have been in your situation of work to the last minute and then burn myself out. I've been watching some stuff and been doing some stuff. So remember, a few weeks ago I lamented the cancellation of Halloween Horror Nights. Well, they have a Halloween Horror Light. They have two houses and the usual food. So Heather and I did that Sunday. Um, it's a little complicated. The houses were fine. They were the best they could be given the current situation. But like the boo holes that people come out, they're like plexiglassed over, so like the characters are still protected, but it was, you can see the plexiglass, so you're like, oh, that's where the scare is coming from. And also one of the houses is like a quote unquote sequel to like my favorite house of all time, and it was fine. I think my hype was too high because people were raving about it, which leads me into some of the stuff that I've been watching. The house itself was a Bride of Frankenstein Lives house. So I had not seen the original Bride of Frankenstein, actually. Me, of all people, Mr. I prefer the classics. I'm old school edgelord. I wouldn't say it's my favorite of the Universal monsters, but Bride of Frankenstein is up there. It's really, really good. I think Invisible Man's probably still my favorite, but this was really, really good. I also had not seen Lake Placid, and I did this weekend, and it's pretty good. My parents have been getting on me to watch it forever because they're just like, it's a giant monster movie. You would love it. What they should have done is, it's by the guy that directed H2O. Then I would have been there a lot sooner, because H2O is awesome. And last but not least, Josh, I don't know if you remember this movie, a Disney Channel original movie called Phantom of the Megaplex.
Nope.
So, as a kid, I remember it being Phantom of the Opera at a movie theater, of like all these bad things start going wrong and people are assuming it's this mysterious phantom that lives in a movie theater. And then I rewatched it, and the movie should just be titled Assistant Manager Kid is Stressed at Work One Night. Like the Phantom is barely mentioned at all, and it's just like this kid that's an assistant manager, which they try and paint as like uptight and whatever else, but the way that they portray him actually is like you're actually a really good customer service and a good responsible teenager. You shouldn't turn down this job opportunity that they're giving you. But it's like these bad things are happening at work. It's just like, there's like barely any phantom here. Also, you know that thing where like your brain misremembers things from your childhood? I completely misremembered who the Phantom was. I was so convinced, like, the only thing I remember about the Phantom of the Megaplex is who the Phantom was. We watched, I'm like, oh, I don't even remember anything about this movie anymore, because I was completely wrong about who that was.
Yeah.
Also, Heather and I were laughing because there's a couple times that they'll have like their cheesy 90s stock music in the background, and then it's not long enough for the scene, so there'll be like these little 2 or 3 second snippets where the music will just cut off and it'll be dead silent in the background while the characters are talking, and they're hoping that you don't notice that there's no background music for a couple seconds. It's like, could you not like drag out your audio, or I don't know, find audio to be the bed underneath? It's not all the time does your childhood classics live up to your imagination. But Josh, you watching anything good?
I literally vegetated all week and a good chunk of the weekend. I caught up on Lovecraft Country, and that was about it.
There's only one left, right?
A youth event this weekend.
There's only one Lovecraft Country left. Lovecraft Country left, right? What? Huh? I'm having a stroke, apparently. There's only one episode of Lovecraft Country left, correct?
I have no idea. I'm on episode 6. Because I was a couple weeks behind.
HBO seasons are short.
I, for whatever reason, thought that those first 4 episodes that I watched before was like, that was it for the season. So I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll have to wait now. But they're doing episode by episode, so.
Which I still prefer that over binging.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I agree. There's a lot of stuff I need answers for, and like episode 6, they kind of drop something on your head, and you're like, wait, now hold on. And so that made me. I might go back and rewatch the whole show up to this point because of something that happens. I'm like, there's no way.
Before we get into our main discussion, there was something that kind of popped up last minute right before we started recording, and I didn't get time to put in as a graphic, but it still drastically impacts something we both radically care about, inadvertently. Dune, the movie that I think both of us kind of agree looks awesome, probably not going to do well financially, and it was also one of our last hopes. Dune has now moved its release date to October of 2021, coincidentally taking the current spot of The Batman, which They haven't said anything yet, but they're by the same studio. So the Batman more than likely is also moving, even though it's a long way off. You don't want two tentpole movies, even though the Batman is going to drastically outsell Dune, mark my words. So more than likely the Batman is delayed because Dune is now in its spot. Some people are saying it's going to be delayed till 2022. I'm like, I don't think that. There's still plenty of opportunities in 2021 later on, like maybe Thanksgiving or Christmas time. Like, well, there's other things that'll go head to head with by WB that they wouldn't want to clash with. Sherlock Holmes 3 is not coming out next year. They have not even started filming that. I think they're not even done with the script writing phase. So that's going to be a 2022 thing. I don't want Batman to get further delayed, especially not till 2022. And we'll get more into why it sucks for Dune in a little bit here for the general theaters, but oh man, this another one. Which has big implications for the movie theaters, but again, that's a topic that we'll get into in a little bit for the news. Josh, you hearing that Dune is canceled? Initial reactions?
Yeah. Like it's kind of par for the course at this point, honestly.
Thoughts on it potentially going up, making Batman delayed though?
Oh, I mean, sure. I think if anybody would do more with just a little extra time, it'd be Matt Reeves. Like, I feel that. Yeah, I feel that no matter what, like if it gets pushed back, the time is going to get used efficiently anyway. So I don't know, man. It's pandemic season, I guess. It's par for the course. Given that the story from Regal that came out today, I don't know how worried we should be about things coming out in theaters.
Yeah, we'll get to the Regal thing, which any other week, the Regal thing would be the biggest thing. However, there's that news topic that when I came across my desk, like I have an actual desk or something, I actually had to double, triple, and like quadruple check, because tell me the news of Jamie Foxx returning as Electro in Spider-Man 3 doesn't sound like a clickbait, we got this covered article.
It totally does.
So I'm just like, yeah, right, sure. And then some reputable sources were reporting it, and then the Hollywood Reporter themselves came out with it, saying, yes, Jamie Foxx is coming back as Electro for Spider-Man 3. And thanks to the good man himself, Jamie Foxx, we'll get into this more detail a little bit, but Jamie Foxx may or may not have let off more than he was supposed to in a quickly deleted Instagram post. But before we get into any of that, I have thoughts, naturally.
Attaboy!
Because, oh my gosh, this thing is like calling my name in both excitement, but a whole bunch of worry and concern. First of all, I have made it no secret. I think Jamie Foxx's portrayal as Electro is one of the worst superhero portrayals in a comic book movie ever. I thought his Electro was god-awful, and I have no idea why they are bringing him back. However, Jamie Foxx, in that since deleted post that we'll deep dive a little bit more in a little bit here because it's tinfoil hat time, he outright stated, I'm back, but I ain't gonna be blue this time. And I'm going, oh, you're not? So there's a potential you're gonna be good this time? I have a lot of concerns, but they're not the concerns that you might think I have, Josh. But before we get into my worries and my big question marks that I have here, which really play into the tinfoil hat time, you see, because actually you are more of a defender of the amazing movies than I am, so this is more or less your area on this one. So you see that Jamie Foxx has come back as a version of Electro for Spider-Man 3. What are you thinking?
I don't. I'm so like. I'm like when I was like you when I think you sent this to me, or
Yeah.
I saw it on Facebook or something when you posted it. Um, I still don't believe it. I don't think it's a thing. I don't know, but all in all, I I don't know how you can say worst movie portrayal of a comic book villain ever when in that same movie we have a Green Goblin, um, which is just terrible.
Who, at least
Oh,
he's not trying to be Jim Carrey's Riddler.
yeah,
Okay, actually, I take it back. He's not the worst, but he's in the top three because probably the worst is, unfortunately, Paul Giamatti's Rhino in the exact same
yeah,
movie. I
like,
am the Rhino!
which is unfortunate because, and I said this to you when the movie was coming out. I was like, Paul Giamatti as the Rhino. Oh, I really like that. I to this day, the idea of it, I still really like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but let's okay. I'm gonna say the things I like about Jamie Curtis.
Jamie Curtis.
Jamie Curtis as Electro. No. As much as I love Jamie Curtis.
What about Jamie Lee Curtis as the female Doc Ock in Into the Spider-Verse?
Okay, I'm down for that. Let's do that. That would be really cool. Anyway, Jamie Foxx's Electro. I can't talk today, bro. I don't know what's going on.
Now I've got Jamie Foxx in that Electra outfit, and I don't want that in my head.
Yeah, no. Okay. Here's the thing, dude. Bringing him back is weird. It makes me ask questions about multiverse right off the bat. Um, because to my knowledge, Marvel has never like had the same person play somebody and play a character that if they played them in a different universe.
You're missing a big one. You're missing a very big one.
I mean, but
J.K. Simmons?
okay, yeah, but that's like on a certain level that's almost understood. But like this is, and everyone loves J.K. Simmons.
Mm-hmm. Because he's the
So
based.
that's why this is so weird. But there were certain things that they did with Electro that I did like. Basically this is the ultimate version of Electro. That when he is like achieved complete energy synchronization or whatever, so he's able to go through um, power outlets and stuff like that. So it's like really really cool stuff. And I wish they would have, I don't know, stuck to one villain, and maybe we would have been able to like Jamie Foxx's Electro a little bit more. I don't know, dude. It's weird. Like I said, I think I'm with you on the tinfoil hat. It makes me personally think of the Spider-Verse right off the bat.
Yeah, so here's where my concerns start piling up, and it's not good. This makes me think that we're getting a Spider-Verse sooner rather than later, which on paper should make me excited. But we're getting it at a time that the MCU Peter Parker is still kind of trying to get his own identity. He's still Iron Man light. Whereas for all their faults, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, they at least knew who they were. Tobey was the nerdy OG Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield was the not particularly nice Spider-Man who was kind of a scumbag, but had his redeeming qualities. Whereas Tom Holland is my favorite Spider-Man, but I feel like there's still a maturation process, and the fact that this has not been set up in any of the previous Spider-Mans just kind of seems like it's well, here we go. Like, I really, really want a Into the Spider-Verse live-action form with all the Spider-Man meeting together. I think that'd be fantastic. But there is something in the world of Spider-Man that I've wanted even more than Spider-Verse for basically as long as I've been reading Spider-Man comics. That is the Sinister Six. This raises a lot of red flags for me. And here's why. I think they're assembling a multiverse version of the Sinister Six. So, like, Michael Keaton's Vulture, maybe Jamie Foxx's Electro, some other villains from the multiverse, and they're gonna merge Sinister Six with Into the Spider-Verse, and I hate everything about that. And here's why. I think an Into the Spider-Verse live-action movie could work, and I think a Sinister Six versus Spider-Man movie could work. I don't want them to be the same movie, and here's why. Spider-Man by himself in a 6-on-1 can beat the Sinister Six. It's one of his best stories of overcoming the odds. It's like reverse Avengers. Instead of 6 heroes versus 1 villain, it's 6 villains versus 1 hero. It stacks the odds against your hero. That makes the victory better. A 6-on-3 is significantly less interesting to me than a 6-on-1. Like, I want a Spider-Verse and I want a Sinister Six movie. I don't want them to be the same movie, because that to me means the MCU version of Spider-Man can't take on the Sinister Six by himself. And if my Spider-Man can't beat the Sinister Six by himself, then he's no Spider-Man to me. And as much as I love Tom Holland, I don't want him to share victory over a Sinister Six with 2 other guys. As much as I like Tobey and I like Andrew Garfield, that defeats the purpose of it being a Sinister Six. A multiverse movie could be great, and I've wanted a Sinister Six movie more than anything. If we get an actual Sinister Six movie, that'll make me more excited than Cap lifting Mjolnir in Endgame. Like, that's been on my wish list even longer than that. I don't want them to be the same movie. And it's Jamie Foxx's deleted Instagram post was a fan-made poster of him being a huge ethereal presence with the backs of the 3 Spider-Man looking up at him, kind of teasing that that's the direction we're going. I would love a live-action Into the Spider-Verse. I think it's way too soon for that, and I don't want it to be a Sinister Six versus Into the Spider-Verse like mashup. But also it comes back down to Jamie Foxx can be a good actor in the right spot. Why are you bringing back his Electro, which is so universally hated? It would be like if we got Man of Steel 2, because heaven knows we can't go an episode without me mentioning it. It would be like if we get Man of Steel 2, featuring the return of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Like, I think people would be very much against that. This has just left me stunned. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think this is the first time in a very long time for Marvel, for me at least, that there's some major red flags being raised of, you're going all in on something, you better have good cards in your hand right now and know what your game plan is. Because, to be fair, Spider-Man's been messed up plenty of times. And this is your chance to make everything really cohesive and be interesting. I feel like this has Sony's fingerprints all over of rushing something cool.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think to a certain point too. I think we've said for a long time, give Spider-Man to Disney, and they'll make so they can do something awesome with him. But then, like, if this is the kind of stuff we're gonna get, it's like, well, now I know for a fact I can't trust Marvel, because, like, bro, like, this is. I mean, I'm not gonna say this is an easy home run for you, but, like, Tom's great. All you got to do is not make him Iron Man light. That's all you got to do.
And that's what Spider-Man 3, I think, what is supposed to be. But if you are doing a setup for an Into the Spider-Verse, that attention is not going to be on him. I really need Spider-Man 3 to be him solidifying his identity as Spider-Man. Like, Iron Man's dead now. We've moved past the grieving process. Knowing how the MCU operates, they'll be like, we're going to retcon this in this universe. Speaking of which, I don't think this Electro will be the Andrew Garfield version. I think it'll be like J.K. Simmons, where it was like a parallel universes version of J. Jonah. I think this will be a parallel universes version of Electro. I swear to God, if this Electro gets his powers because of some accident at Stark Industries, I will be so pissed. And I think Marvel has heard the complaints of relying on too much of Iron Man for Spider-Man, and that's why I was excited for Spider-Man 3 of just like, okay, we can finally get past this. And this makes me really, really nervous. As we know on the podcast, I'm very protective of Spider-Man, as I had my big, huge, epic rant when they had that divorce before they made up. I'm still really nervous about this, and just call me crazy with my tinfoil hat, but I think they're trying to plan something big, which on paper should get Spider-Man fans excited. I just don't know if it's the smartest plan currently.
Yeah,
But again,
I
this is
agree.
me just speculating, and it could completely not be the plan at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's there's a lot of factors going into this. I never thought that Jamie Foxx would be worse at keeping secrets than Tom Holland, but here we are, I guess. I don't know, dude. It's like me having to tell a bunch of all my other friends like they're like, "Whoa, I can't wait to see Spider-Man and Venom too." And I'm like, I mean,
He
maybe,
he'll be there. He'll be there.
but
I think
I'm
he'll be
not gonna
there.
bet. I'm not gonna bet the house on it.
I think he'll be there. Well, the other big news topic, this one sucks to talk about. And we can't really blame James Bond. I mean, we can partially blame James Bond, but it's not entirely their fault, despite my graphic here. Um, so, James Bond's No Time to Die has been delayed until April 2nd, 2021, and thus has prompted certain movie theaters. For right now, it is just Regal, but mark my words, other theaters are going to follow suit. That they're going to be closing again coming
Yeah,
this Thursday. At least Regal is. I'm not as optimistic this time around. When theaters closed the first time in March, like right before A Quiet Place, which I'm still mad about that. There are people in this world, professional reviewers, that have seen A Quiet Place 2 right before this, and I'm so mad because that was one of my most anticipated movies. Um, I'm not as optimistic about the return of movie theaters as I was in March, because back in March we're like, okay, by July or August things will be back to normal. People didn't abide by safety regulations, and so as the adage I've been going with this whole time is, this pandemic has basically been like a teacher telling the kids, y'all just need to be quiet for exactly 3 minutes, but every time somebody talks, you get an extra minute on your timeout, and the whole class just won't shut up. So they keep dragging out this quarantine. So now the theaters are back closed because, again, shameless plug. Last week we talked about this extensively with my lovely wife, who, as of this week, worked at a movie theater. And now I'm not sad just because I have someone that worked there losing her part-time income. They have been cutting down hours ridiculously anyway. It's not like our main source of income, so it's more just sad that losing some income there. But I'm sad because I genuinely believe theaters will not open again when they have the chance. And it's the studios. I know the studios are trying to think in their best interest of, we need to release this when people feel safe to go to the theaters again. And I get that a lot of places are not open. That's fine. But studios, if you keep delaying your movies, you will not have a theater to come back to. And I fear we've gotten to that point now, because I guarantee you, now that Dune has moved, now that this has moved, theaters are not opening again for the rest of the year. Like, I still have some that are open till the end of October because they have like Halloween related movies showing for October. So I'm gonna watch Halloween 2018 next week. But after that, I think theaters are gonna be closed until at the very earliest January, February of next year, if they ever open again. And you guys know me, Josh, you know me. I really try and be an optimist as much as I can be. I'm saying theaters are dead. As we know them, theaters are dead. I've had this discussion with my dad, and he is in the same camp as me. Of, we think that when theaters eventually do open, they will go the way of what drive-ins were before the pandemic. They're still around, but the diehardest of diehard goes to them, and they're very hard to find.
yeah,
I don't think the industry is going to survive this, because movie theaters have such a razor-thin profit margin as is, and you are now basically going to go 9 out of the 12 months of this year with virtually no income. Now, I know that's a lot of businesses, but a lot of businesses have the opportunity to work from home or work in limited capacities. A lot of companies rely on their own products. Theaters rely on other people's stuff. And if that's taken away from them, sorry. It's... I want theaters to survive. I just really don't have faith that they'll be back, and that really makes me sad. It's going to be weird. If movie theaters don't come back, it's going to be weird to know that the last new movie I saw in theaters was Bill and Ted.
Hmm.
But I'm proud of that choice.
Yeah. Fair.
Josh, you see, No Time to Die has been delayed again, and more than likely, now that Regal is closing, other theaters will follow suit, and theaters will be closing. What are you making of it?
About the same as you, man. It's unfortunate and it sucks, but I mean, much like drive-ins, I'll still like if it does become the way of the drive-in with regular movie theaters, I'm still gonna sorry, I'm gonna say I would still like to make an effort to go to a movie theater if they're close or whatever. But it's the same time like it's hard to not enjoy the just being able to watch new movies at the comfort of your own home. Um, Although I do like, and I think at the end of the day, the in theater movie experience is so much better. Um, it's just, yeah, like you said, dude, the profit margin is so razor thin already. That's why they have to charge so much for food and drinks and all these other things because that's where the money's coming from. So I don't know, man. It stinks, and I mean we'll see what happens, man. I kind of hope that next year or maybe in November or something, something changes. Something, maybe all this will turn around somehow. Who knows? But it just sucks.
So, the thing that makes me the saddest more than anything else is not the fact that the theaters are closing, but all these like websites, like Hollywood Reporter, various social medias that are posting these stories that theaters may be gone forever. What's really actually just breaking my heart is so many of the comments that I'm reading from Facebook, from Twitter, are people going, "Good riddance, I watch things at home." I'm going, guys, that's not how movies are meant to be seen. Like some movies, like Netflix trash, you can watch on a screen because they're meant to be seen on home screens. But some movies, for all Tenet's issues with its sound mix and everything else, that's clearly meant to be on the big screen. But also, for those people that say you prefer watching movies at home, just cast your mind back not even a year ago when we all sat giddy with excitement for Endgame. Watch Endgame now when Steve picks up the hammer and you don't hear the roar of the crowd, the excitement, the loud squeals of delight seeing T'Challa come through the portal with all the Wakandan soldiers. The crowd, the atmosphere, the loud cheers when Avengers Assembled hits. All that's taken away. You can have your surround sound, your 4K TV, and everything else at home. But without the crowd, it's just a viewing experience. It's just a movie at home. It's not an actual viewing experience. But also, if we don't have movie theaters, movies like Endgame are gone because studios need box office revenue for you going to the theater to survive. If they don't have that, we're getting much smaller scale movies from here on out, and movies that are specifically made to be watched on your home TV, which, call me a purist, I don't care. That's not how movies are always intended to be watched. Some are meant to be seen on big, elaborate screens. Like, we've got a friend of ours that's been trying to get us to see Jurassic Park with him and his kids. That's a movie that's meant to be seen on the big screen. You can have the biggest TV you want. You will never be able to emulate how it is in a theater. And it makes me incredibly sad that people just so easily want to cast that aside because of something that might be a little more convenient for them. And maybe I'm too old school, but it just...
Yeah.
That's not... I don't think that's fair or good.
Yeah.
Well,
It just sucks.
I would say we're getting more optimistic news, but no, it's more just greedy Disney news. So, the Lion King movie last year. one of the single most disappointing movies I've seen in a while. It is now getting a sequel for some reason by the director of Moonlight, which is supposed to be a prequel slash sequel that'll explore the origins of Mufasa.
Okay.
Why? Just, I get it.
Okay.
The other one made $1 billion, but also, Disney, do you realize that half the people that saw Lion King didn't like it? Of all your live action ones that you've made, why is this the one? Like, I know we're getting an Aladdin sequel. There's more interesting stories to tell there. That's fine. And I know some people out there will be like, well, are they going to follow the story of the original VHS movies of like Simba's Pride or Lion King 1.5? No, because I want them to be good movies. I don't care what you say. Those movies aren't as good as you remember them being. Disney directed VHS movies, by and large, are pretty trashy, except for Return of Jafar. That one's not too bad. No, they want their stories to be good. But this is just one of those of like blatantly just, yeah, we just want to make more money. Like, we know that's all these live action remakes have been, is we want to make more money. Really? Is that, do we have to spend more time in this Lion King world? Like, I was so excited for the last one, and it was so disappointing.
Yeah.
Like, it's so well cast, but everyone seems like they're just sleepwalking through it. And also, I was never the biggest fan of Be Prepared, but good lord, did you butcher that song in that movie. You see,
Yeah.
Lion King 2 is happening for some reason by the Academy Award-winning director of Moonlight. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah. I mean, I think my biggest issue with the Lion King movie was not necessarily like the star-studded cast and how they walked through it. It's really hard to give an emotional performance when you don't let your actual animated, yeah, I said animated, characters have emotion. The like when the best example is when Mufasa dies and Simba screams no. The voice is telling me the emotion, but there's nothing on that lion cub's face that tells me that he's sad.
The exact opposite happened. There's quite a few people that laughed at my showing.
Yeah, because like it's like, okay, I don't see, what am I looking at here? I don't get it. So it's just, I don't know. Like you said, blatant money hungry, power grubbing, whatever. It's just dumb.
The worst
Dumb.
The worst thing about this is Disney has this great knack for acquiring great directors and then homogenizing their work to be so bland and devoid of their signature style. Like, I know it's going to hit home for you. Kenneth Branagh is a good director. What the heck did Disney do to Artemis Fowl? Because I feel like Kenneth Branagh could have done a good Artemis Fowl movie if, you know, he acted like Artemis Fowl. But Disney, like, has to make everything so, like, strip away almost all the creative freedom. Like, Jon Favreau. Jungle Book is outstanding. Still my favorite of the Disney live-action remakes. Then he does Lion King, and I feel like they just took away all of his creative freedom there. Then, surprisingly, when he has creative freedom again for Mandalorian, look what happens. It's like Disney doesn't realize maybe creativity and studio support makes money. Wow. They just want... Disney is becoming the Starbucks of the movie industry. They are cheap to make, they overprice everything, and everything kind of tastes... You know what you're going to get with the taste. It's nothing spectacular. It's not the best you'll ever have. But it's a safe bet, even if it's not the best of quality. It's just that consistency is consistently average. But, I don't know. It's tough. I don't know, that Regal story just wiped me out of it. But surprisingly...
Yeah, dude, I mean, there's been so much in the news lately as far as for movies and stuff like that that's just like... like, just... We need a win, man. We need a win, like, now.
So, speaking of which, believe it or not, this news story, maybe it's just because we've been so devoid of content for a while, this news story actually made me really excited. Like, I was genuinely happy. which is weird because I know nothing about this girl. So, as we know, we're getting a Miss Marvel series on Disney Plus. So, for those that don't know, Miss Marvel is kind of like the Robin to Captain Marvel's Batman-ish. With some of the similar powers of Mr. Fantastic, like stretching and everything else, except she's like a huge fanboy of all the Marvel characters. So she's getting her own show on Disney Plus. I'm trying to remember what her claim to fame is. It is either she is the first major Pakistani superhero or the first Muslim superhero. It's one of those two. It might be both. But we now have relatively newcomer to the fact of like she only has like one credit or something on IMDb. Let me make sure I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel. I have no idea why, but this made me super, super excited for this little girl because I think there's a lot of fun possibilities with Miss Marvel. I played a little bit of the Avengers game, at least that beta from a few weekends ago. Didn't like it. One of the few things I did like, though, was Miss Marvel. She actually had charm and personality. But more than anything with this girl, I know nothing about her. I don't know, I just got giddy going, good for you! Relative unknown. I feel like you're going to crush this. Because it's one of those roles of, like, you have to have enthusiasm to be Miss Marvel. And I don't know why. Maybe because we're so devoid of happiness in this time. But seeing this relatively new up-and-comer, this young woman get cast in this role, I don't know. I felt really happy for her going, I don't know who you are, but I feel like you're going to do well. I'm so happy for you. This is cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the prospect of Miss Marvel because it's one of those characters of young kids and different nationalities. We'll be able to see them. Again, it's that diversifying who people see on the big screen. It's not just your stereotypical white dude superhero anymore. Now you've got Black Panther. Now you're going to have Miss Marvel. Kids will be able to see themselves in these various roles. Again, I know nothing about her. Off the bat, she's immediately better than Captain Marvel, which, fun fact, Josh, this girl has a letterbox. For those that don't know, letterbox is like a fan thing where you can kind of give your quick, brief thoughts on movies. She gave Captain Marvel a 2 out of 5 stars.
Jeez. Okay.
I'm like,
what she could be saying is, maybe you're just missing someone special, like me.
She said she doesn't blame Brie Larson at all for it. And I don't know if I do either. Her performance was awful, but maybe that's the 5 writers for that movie. But I just think it's funny that she's now being associated with Captain Marvel. Yet she gave 2 out of 5 stars to a Captain Marvel movie. Like, yeah. She's my hero right now.
Yeah, but, man, like you said, it's probably just like we needed a win. We need somebody to cheer for. And, I mean, dude, bring it on. Maybe this will be an opportunity for Disney to keep their promise that the Disney shows are connected to the MCU.
Well, we'll see about that. It's got to be better than the ABC stuff. Well, last but not least is the most out of left field, and again, no guarantees this will actually happen because it's not like a certain group has a tendency to cancel projects that they've announced. Magic Treehouse series! But Netflix is developing a Conan the Barbarian series. Yes, the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger that, for Josh's sake, yes, did in fact get rebooted once in 2011 with Jason, my man, Momoa.
Yep.
I would say I'm excited, but I know nothing about the Conan other than there's one version that's got ridiculously orange hair that's very signature. This could be interesting. This hasn't been greenlit yet. They're still developing it, but it's again that thing of like, Netflix, stop announcing stuff if you don't actually have an intention of... Okay, it's weird, but I'm going to quote Phantom Menace in a positive manner. It's like Newt Gunray at the beginning. Why didn't you tell him about the missing Jedi? We'll give him a report when we have something to report. It's like, Netflix, stop announcing stuff unless you actively are working on something. Like you said, you're working on the Last Airbender series, and then you lost 2 of the main creative heads for that show. And also, Announcing this a few days before you announce the cancellation of one of your biggest shows, Glow, probably not the best idea.
Yeah.
Because Netflix, has that tendency to go, oh, this show's popular. Let's end it after 3 seasons so we don't have to pay our actors any more money. I think after the success of The Witcher, which is like one of your main shows, Josh, I think they're just digging through the trash going, okay, what can people mistakenly confuse with The Witcher that we can build a fan base around? Oh, this guy's got a sword too. He's got big muscles. He's got long hair. The Witcher copy. There you go.
Yeah, it's. I have many issues with this. First of all, I misread the news topic the first time I was going through it, and I thought it was the Barbarian, like that animated show with the talking sword.
Dave the Barbarian?
Yeah.
Barbarian.
Dude, if it would have been that, boy, I would have.
Why is that not on Disney Plus?
I don't know, because that show's great.
It was weird. It was very weird. Like, who came up with that idea?
I don't know. But it's like that perfect kind of like Chowder and The Adventures of Flapjack. It was like that perfect like weird combo of like action adventure and like weird comedy.
Dude,
I don't know, man.
Imagine a live action Dave the Barbarian with Patrick Warburton as Dave.
Stop. Or Brendan Fraser. I could see Brendan. Get him jacked again. Hashtag get Brendan jacked again. That's what we're gonna. I'm starting this.
Did you ever see the Jason Momoa version?
I have.
Because I was about to say you've seen basically every movie in Momoa's filmography, if you can.
Give or take.
What about Bullet to the Head?
I met Momoa in Stargate Atlantis.
Yeah, buddy. Somebody else remembers that besides me and my parents.
Mainly because they used to I was homeschooled, right? So like
we know
used to play all the reruns of SG1 and then Atlantis. But like half the year they would do they would go all the way through SG1 and then they would start Atlantis and then go all the way through that. So it was really cool.
I've always said, half joking but half serious, that Jason Momoa is the embodiment of a literal Pokemon because he's evolved, because he started his career on Baywatch, and then he was in Stargate Atlantis, and then he was called Drogo, the King of the Sea, and then he became Aquaman. He's like building up his career to be Aquaman someday. I'm just glad someone now knows my Stargate Atlantis.
Yeah, bro.
Pokemon evolution. But you saw, what did you think of the Momoa Conan? Oh, that explains it.
It's a thing that happened.
Okay. Conan, Jason Momoa Conan, or The Rock Hercules?
Oh, that's not even a question. Rock Hercules.
Ooh, what about Momoa Conan, or Kellen Lutz Hercules? Yes, I do remember that movie happening.
Momoa. I'm gonna go with Momoa just because he at his core is very entertaining.
From your experience with the Jason Momoa Conan, is there a potential for something here? Given that I don't think either of us have seen the Arnie one.
I have. I've seen the Arnie one.
Oh, have you seen the Arnie one? Okay.
And it's Conan the Barbarian. It's a movie about a barbarian. I don't know what else you want. I don't know what you're expecting. It's yeah, I guess. Maybe if they give it the Witcher treatment with Momoa, it could have potential. Maybe, but I mean, of the things out there to make, I don't know if this is it. I don't think this is it.
I'm willing to bet the house that they want to make this a shared cinematic universe so they can have like a Red Sonja spin-off. Think like Hercules spinning off into Xenon Warrior Princess type of thing.
Oh, yay. You know what? No. You know what? I don't want this to happen because I need my Magic Treehouse.
Amen.
I need my Avatar: The Last Airbender.
No.
Stop announcing stuff. And then you're going to do this and cancel. Get out of here. Anyway. All right.
You know what they should do? Is I know we're getting a sequel movie, but they should do a Netflix live action series on scary stories to tell in the dark. I know there was a movie. The movie was great, but do it like a kids or teen version of Creepshow, of different short stories. That's what Netflix should do for spooky season. But what do we know? Which admittedly is not much.
Yeah.
Josh, you got a sponsor for us this week before you get into spoopy times?
Oh, jeez. Today's episode of an Uncharted Media podcast is brought to you in part by Haunted Houses. Go out and support your local haunted houses this year.
If they're open.
Yeah,
There's some by us that I haven't gotten around to, but that are like drive-through attractions.
Nice.
I'm curious
That's kind of cool.
I'm curious how those would do. But yes, speaking of haunted houses, that is our discussion this week. Best haunted house movies. So it has to be the house or place of residence itself. It's all kinds of spoopy. It can't be a specific item in that house. It can't be like, as Josh and I discussed before this, it can't be like Oculus, where the mirror is what's causing all the problems, or like an Annabelle, or I almost put.
Well, the house is definitely affected in Oculus. It's the mirror itself that is the haunted thing.
Yes, or I almost put Insidious on the list, but Insidious is not the problem. Or, oh,
true.
I completely missed one because I overthought it of like this movie, which we'll just make that the first one. I completely forgot about the one movie that has kept both you and I up at night. The only horror movie that's ever done that. Sinister.
Bro, that is on my list. Are you kidding me? How you forget about Sinister?
Because when I was thinking back to Sinister, I was trying to remember if it was the house's fault or the kid's fault.
Technically both.
Yes, that's why I feel like we can talk about Sinister, because they move into the house, then stuff goes bad. Then when they move the houses, they think they're gonna be fine, but then, spoiler alert for Sinister, no, bad things happen to everyone.
Yes.
Sinister, at least the first one. The second one is.
They tried.
In the words of Red Letter Media, Sinister 2 is the most disappointing thing since my son. Sinister 2 is bad, but the first one, I remember we watched it with a whole bunch of people, and the collective sigh of relief whenever they cut to like daytime and we know it's safe. We're like, oh, okay, we're fine now.
We got it. We got through it. We got through it. We can make it.
Was it Sinister that you beat the crap out of Neslo because he scared you?
It was Sinister.
So what happened?
He thought it was a good idea to scare me during the daytime scene.
So
I was like, "What are you doing, bro?"
So
during a movie too. I don't care if you scare me. Don't do it during a movie.
So I'm not gonna lie. I've always remembered that you being scared and just jumping a mile high and punching the person that scared you, which makes me go, if you come down to Horror Nights next year when everything's normal again, it makes me real worried about taking you through houses that you're going to end up punching a scare actor and getting us kicked out or something.
So...
And Josh is not denying it. Like, I will go first to make sure you don't have a punch reaction.
Here's the thing, man. The first haunted house I was ever in, I got kicked out of.
Oh, no.
For that reason. Because I was with my girlfriend at the time, the guy jumped out, and Josh's fight or flight instincts kicked in, and he went straight for her, and I was like, "No, sir!" And
oh no, you punched her?
Yeah, I broke his nose.
Oh no, I thought you punched her. You said I went right for her.
Oh no, he was coming straight for her, and I was like, "No, sir, not today!" Yeet. So.
Oh, I'm not concerned at it. But needless to say, Josh scares easily, and will punch you apparently. But
apparently,
Sinister is very unsettling, and it's great. But also, this is a weird nitpick. Is this like the only one-story house of movies that we're going to talk about today? Because I've always thought the look of the Sinister house was so bland and nonchalant. Like, normally haunted houses are like this big, extravagant mansion, like Crimson Peak or Haunted Mansion. This one is just like... No, it's a one-story townhome. I'm going, nothing spooky could be here.
Everything about it doesn't seem threatening at all. Like, and I think in some ways, and they might do that on purpose. But yeah, like it's just like even like the first shot of the house is just kind of like, oh, it's just a house. It's a thing. That's cool. All right, cool.
And then everything goes sideways.
All downhill from there.
And yeah, the tapes, which admittedly the tapes don't show as much as we think they do. Our brain fills in the gaps.
Which is genius.
The lawnmower thing just still no. Still not as bad as now that Josh has seen Goodnight Mommy. Half the stuff in Goodnight Mommy,
Bro.
Nope. That's not a haunted house movie, but probably the biggest name haunted house movie in recent memory, at least, by our good buddy from the Aquaman movie, James Wan. Both Conjurings, but for this list, we'll just stick with the first Conjuring.
Oh, I put both of them on here.
I would,
because I like them. I like them both so much.
I like half of Conjuring 2. I think the problem is Conjuring 2. It's way too long. It's way longer than it needs to be. Like by a solid 45 minutes, it is ridiculously long, and also it sets up too many sequels. Like the first one is a pretty self-contained story. However, the first one I do have a minor grievance against, because it's the only movie on our list we're going to talk about today that they kill the dog. Come on. Was that really necessary? Because, believe it or not, if I remember correctly, the dog is the only thing that dies in The Conjuring.
Yep.
And I'm like, come on. Really? You had to kill the dog? That's not fair. Couldn't you not just kill Patrick Wilson instead?
Stop. No, be nice.
Like, I like Patrick Wilson, but I'd sacrifice him for a dog.
Fair. Okay. It's a dog.
Like, that's just logic. Like, even your beloved franchise, Josh, Friday the 13th, they didn't even kill the dog. Anchorman treats dog...
Hold on.
I know. That's why I said it. Anchorman is meaner to dogs than Friday the 13th is.
Yeah. I'm in a glass case of emotion.
Backstab.
Oh, man. But to get back to The Conjuring, like you said, specifically the first one is really solid. And I think in some ways, I don't know about you, but this is kind of like, this was the first, it is the first in the Conjuring universe, but large air quotes on that. And bro, I still think to this day it's the most solid out of all of them.
Oh yeah, well, Annabelle Creation.
See, I might put it's very close.
I'm very biased towards David F. Sandberg, though.
That's fair.
But The Conjuring, I will put in the camp of like one of the best modern horror movies. Like one of the ones that like everyone gained attention, but it's also rightly so. It's not one of those like a Paranormal Activity sequels. Everyone just talks about it, but it's not actually that good. Because I remember when Paranormal Activities were coming out, which would those count? I haven't seen the Paranormal Activities actually. Would those count?
I haven't, and that's why I didn't put them on the list.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to track down the first one. I can see all the sequels in places. I don't know if Paranormal Activity counts as the house itself as what's evil, but I remember when those were coming out, everyone's like, "Oh, you gotta see the newest Paranormal Activity," and I've heard not great things about everything besides the first one. But yeah, The Conjuring, on the other hand, is one that got ridiculously popular really quick, but also was really, really good.
Yes. Oh, I agree. I think it did a really good job of doing a lot of classic scares, but doing them in such a fresh way that it threw, at least, for you and me, it threw us off. Of like, oh, I see where you're going with it. Hey, wait a second.
The only thing I would have changed is, and it has nothing to do with the movie, it's the marketing, I would not have shown the clap in trailers. Because, the hide and clap scene, that was in every single trailer. And I would have kept that, because that was a good scare. Without saying too much, it would be like if in the trailer for Haunting of a Hill House, they showed that one scare that happens in the car. Because then you're on guard for it, and you're not going to be scared as much. But The Conjuring is fantastic, and holds up incredibly well. What are some other ones you got there, Josh?
I have The Woman in Black on this list.
Okay, I was going to put that one. Does that... It's been a while since I've seen that one. Does that count? Is it the house or the actual Woman in Black?
See, the thing is that the spirit is attached to the house. It's not like she can chase him elsewhere. You know what I mean?
Do you remember how it ends?
I do, but I would argue he's dead before then. And so that's literally his spirit going there.
Which, maybe, if we want to read too much into this, Woman in Black is where Daniel Radcliffe's career died so he could be reborn as the better actor. Because people seem to only think of him as Harry Potter, but he's probably one of the best actors working today, guys. Daniel Radcliffe's awesome.
Dude, and to me, I think I wouldn't say this is his best work, by far from it, but it's so radically different.
I think it's one of his more underrated performances.
Yes, oh, I agree. When he's freaking out, trying to dig out the dead son from the swamp, it's some of the best emotion I think I've ever up to that point had seen from Radcliffe. So it's so good. He's I counted it because it's the house and the property so that it surrounds. Because it's the house itself that actually affects the town. It's the house itself that affects the swamp that surrounds it. So it's while yes, it is the spirit that lives there. It's still like that spirit is not technically powerful enough to bring back all the souls of all the kids that are in that cemetery and all that. So it's the house as well. It is haunted, which has one of the most interesting scares I think for me anyway, where because we don't see the spirit for a long time, like a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's when I think he falls asleep. Yeah, he falls asleep at the desk, and like the camera like leaves him, and for me anyway, I was like, wait, why are we leaving him? That's our focus, and it leaves, it goes through the hallway, goes into the next, from the front door to a door that's right next to the front door. You see it unlock and open, and that's it, and you're like, whoa, 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 hold on, what are we seeing here? It's very good.
Woman in Black, the sequel is not as good, but the first Woman in Black, I feel like definitely went under a lot of people's radars, and maybe it's because maybe people found out about the ending and people like happy endings, but in a sense it's a satisfactory ending.
It's more of a sad ending to me.
Yeah, it's old Gothic doesn't always mean happy ending. It's a tragedy. But still excellently told story. What else you got?
I'm going to be daring and put Crimson Peak up there.
Never saw it. However, I will say visually it looks cool.
Oh, dude, it's a very, very impactful movie. Now, I won't sit here and say that it's up to Conjuring level at all. It's definitely, because it is a Guillermo del Toro movie, definitely more on the thoughtful side of horror than the scare side, and I think that's why it didn't get, it wasn't talked about as much.
It was mismarketed.
Yeah, because it's a Guillermo del Toro movie.
It's a Gothic romance, not a horror.
Yeah, it is more of a horror. Like I'm still going to use the word. No, yeah, I think that hits it on the head, Nathan. Like a Gothic romance. There's a lot of scary stuff that happens, a lot of really disturbing imagery, but the house itself is definitely haunted, and there's a lot of really interesting stories that are told from that. And honestly, I mean, I would recommend you see it. I mean, if anything, from just a visual standpoint, and like, again, it's Del Toro, man. Like, the way that guy finds ways to bring things we've never seen to the screen is just, or like bring spirits to the screen in a way we've never seen before. That isn't just like, ooh, little
spooky,
ghostly,
scary skeletons and shivers down your spine.
Yeah, exactly. It actually felt, everything feels real in his movies. Really, I mean, I would dare say all of them. Anything that he does a really good job of bringing to like almost a reality, not like Christopher Nolan reality, but like
a Del Toro reality.
Yeah, like it feels like
Hyper
this
reality
exists in this plane of existence.
I'm still mad. Like, we could have a Universal Monsters shared universe of Tim Burton, take your pick, Dracula, whatever else, Del Toro doing Creature from the Black Lagoon, Lee Winnell or James Wan doing some form of a creature feature or ghostly creature. Why has Del Toro not done a Universal Monster movie? I feel like, what was it, The Shape of Water is his attempt at it, as close as he can get to it. It's like a merging of Creature from the Black Lagoon with a little bit of Phantom of the Opera, but more Creature from the Black Lagoon, which known for other things, but yeah. But yeah, I like some Del Toro. I just have not got around to Crimson Peak, primarily just because I had heard that the trailers were deceptive. I think I'll get around to seeing it at some point, because I kind of know what to expect of, like, it is not a horror movie in the slightest. I mean, it may have some horrific elements, but it's more, look at how pretty this is. It's one of those of, like, the movie may not have been that great, but boy, I would love to see it as a Halloween Horror Nights house because of the gothic architecture and everything else. I'd much rather walk through the movie than watch it, as mean as that is to say. I will say my one and only kids movie on this list.
No!
What? Do you have multiple kids movies? Oh, no, wait, no. I have two. One of them is good.
Okay.
One of them is good, and one of them...
I have one that I make it a point to watch every October that I was trying to save, but...
Oh, then I'll go with the one that I really hope is not on your list, because it doesn't deserve to be on my list, but I thought it was worth talking about anyway, because I'm sure there's going to be some blind nostalgia babies out there that'll still claim this movie's good. Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
Guys, rewatch it. It is not as good as you remember, despite Eddie Murphy trying. I think he's trying. I don't know, but the problem is, Haunted Mansion has 999 happy haunts, but there's room for 1,000. Any volunteers? As I've been on it plenty of times, you pick the most boring human characters. You have 999 ghosts. That is 999 storytelling possibilities. And you tell the story of a person, and his name is Anakin. No, Jim Evers. Now, I will give credit where credit is due for Haunted Mansion. Like Crimson Peak, it looks gorgeous. Like, the big staircase at the front that kind of looks like the, Backstreet's Back music video that looks like that courtyard, which is the most oddly specific reference you will ever hear me make on this podcast. It's visually looks gorgeous. Story's a little weak. However, I'll always give credit where credit's due of Terrence Stamp as the butler. It's a shame he didn't get to say, like, kneel before me as a reference to Superman 2, but also, Disney kind of pushed the boundaries a little bit at the beginning, because on the Haunted Mansion ride, your ghost host supposedly is Master Gracie, who's the owner of the house in the movie as well. In both the movie and the ride, they show him hanging himself. And I was like, oh, good for you, Disney. Way to show a dead body in your movie. It wasn't like a silhouette. It was actually his limp body. Good for you. But also, I've always been confused by both the ride and the movie. He hangs himself in, like, a big, like, atrium. I'm going, 1, how'd you get up there? And 2, who got you down? I wanted Haunted Mansion to be better, and I feel like there's so many storytelling opportunities there, and that's why I'm happy that it's supposedly getting a new movie. But guys, go back and watch it on Disney+. It is not as good as you remember, despite the fact that I remember the marketing being everywhere for that movie.
Yeah. I've never seen it. So.
Really? You never saw it?
Nah, dude.
Have you seen any of the Disney attraction-based movies?
Outside of Pirates of the Caribbean, no.
What about Country Bears?
Oh, no. Yeah, I see Country Bears.
I will still say Country Bears isn't that bad. I will say Country Bears is not that bad because it almost is like self-aware that it's not the best, and so it makes stupid jokes. Plus, can you honestly tell me that Christopher Walken isn't giving his absolute 100% A game in that movie. He's bringing like rare form crazy walking in that movie, and it's wonderful. He crushes a model house with an anvil that's installed within his office while he wears no pants and dances in slippers. Like, come on. What more do you want from your Christopher Walken? Plus,
okay, fair enough.
At the end, he goes, "I'll get you, Biz." Like, what more do you want? That can count as a haunted house movie. I don't care.
No, I'm not counting it. I'm not counting it.
Fine. We'll leave the other kids movie for later.
Yeah, it's one I might have to try to watch this season. But the thing though that I have found is, because like I mean I don't think it's any secret, at least on the podcast, that I didn't grow up with watching movies. So a lot of movies that people have a lot of nostalgia for, particularly in the Halloween season, looking at you, Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, Hocus Pocus is trash. Hocus Pocus is trash. Hocus Pocus is trash.
I do not like I saw it and I was like, it's mildly fun, I guess.
No.
It's not. I never want to crap on somebody else's happiness. But
Yeah.
Dude, it's just not that good.
I think Hocus Pocus is the single most overrated Halloween movie of all time, and I do not get the hype. But if you like it, that's awesome. I just will never understand the appeal. To me, Halloween Town is so much better.
I got a hot take for you.
Uh-oh.
I think Nightmare Before Christmas is more overrated.
Oh, I hate them both. Which also, spoiler alert, guys, Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas was not directed by Tim Burton. He just has his name on it.
Yeah. It's... I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's because it's been shown to me multiple times with the caveat of, you have to like this, you have to like this, everybody likes this. And so maybe there's that air to it, but like, I guess I never got what the hype was.
I think you had to see it initially. To me, I think Hocus Pocus, this could be a weird comparison, but go with me here. I think Hocus Pocus is like Napoleon Dynamite. You either get it or you don't. I do not get Napoleon Dynamite, and I don't like it. But I know a lot of people get it, and I think that's the same thing with Hocus Pocus. You just have a leaning towards John Heder and stupid comedies.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I laugh there's certain scenes that will pop up into my head from Napoleon Dynamite that I'll just sit there and giggle at. Specifically the scene where the farmer accidentally shoots his cow in front of a bus full of children, and that sounds way more morbid than they don't show anything, but it's absolutely hilarious to me. It showed me that comedy is just as much about timing as it is actual content.
That's why Amy Schumer's bad at both.
Ooh.
Tell me I'm wrong, though. So, all right, we've taken care of Haunted Mansion. Let's go with some old ones, in that we've got Haunting of Bly Manor coming up this week, and everyone loved Haunting of Hill House, based off a book by Shirley Jackson, which has been adapted many times. One terrible movie from the 90s called The Haunting, starring Liam, I shall kill you in your sleep, Neeson. That sounded more Sean Connery, but whatever. But
yeah,
no,
I don't know what that was.
I'm not going to talk about that Haunting. I'm going to talk about the original black and white Haunting, which is radically different than The Haunting of Hill House. Mike Flanagan took more than a few creative liberties. That one is more of a slow burn psychological horror for a good chunk of the movie. It's very ambiguous of, is this house haunted, or are the people inside the house just losing their minds from lack of sleep type of situation. It's a very slow burn. There's a scene that gets replicated in the Haunting of Hill House show with the two girls hearing a whole bunch of loud noises around their room. That was also replicated in that first one, just very different. That first one is a classic. The Liam Neeson one with Owen Wilson getting his head chopped off, not so much of a classic. But hey, Owen Wilson gets his head chopped off and he says, wow, at some point in the movie. Not as he's getting his head chopped off, as much as I would love to see that. Just, wow.
or he gets chopped off, hits the ground, rolls in front of the camera, making eye contact with the camera. Wow.
No, I can do you one better. His head gets chopped off at the top of the stairs, and his head just bounces down, and every stair it hits, wow, 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 like a squeaky toy. Like, wow. And then his head, once it hits his bottom, it's just like a balloon letting out air, just wow. This got real morbid real quick. Wow.
Yes.
So, another movie that a lot of people grew up with, that I think Josh and I both saw this in college, and I don't get the hype of this, but I think so many people grew up with this, that grew up with horror movies, that just love this, that don't want to acknowledge that there might be some issues with this, and it might not be as good as you remember, because everyone's like, oh, but the ghost designs are so cool and original. I'm like, yeah, designs don't make up for the bad story or bad acting. As much as I love me some Tony Shalhoub and Matthew Lillard, 13 Ghosts really is not that good, despite what you want to think. People are like, oh, but all 13 Ghosts are so cool and original. I'm like, yeah, so? Did you like the story? What's the story? I don't know. But a guy gets cut in half like doors that you'd see at Walmart. And what's the story? I don't know. It's on my list because it's a very iconic haunted house movie, and I'm sure there's a wide demographic out there that are nostalgic for 13 Ghosts with the weird spelling of 13, but I just saw it too late, and like Hocus Pocus, I just do not get it. I think you had to grow up with it. To me, it's not bad. It's a guilty pleasure, but by no means is it great, but it's at least entertaining. I'll watch almost anything with Matthew Lillard in it.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. I think I saw it with you, and that was like the only time I've ever watched it.
That's the only time I've watched it too.
Well, look at that.
I've got
5
more.
Let's throw Poltergeist out there.
I guess.
I mean, and to be clarified, we're talking about the OG Poltergeist, not that.
As much as I like Sam Rockwell, yes, we're not going to talk about his.
Not that new one, no. I think I'm going to go with this kind of the same thing for you, for 13 Ghosts. Poltergeist, while groundbreaking at the time, and definitely a classic in the horror genre, I personally don't get the hype.
No, I watched it for the first time a year or two ago. So this year would have been Halloween Horror Nights 30. So for 28, they had a Poltergeist house. And so we're like, okay, we got to make sure we're caught up on everything before we go to houses so we know what we're going to do. For those few Horror Nights fans out there, we didn't end up going into Poltergeist house, which is sacrilege because supposedly that was like the best house that year. I don't get Poltergeist. I really don't. It was very, very slow for so much of it. That when it ramps up, you're just like, finally. But could we have paced things out a little bit more? But also, I think it's like you had to grow up with it. Like, there's a certain generation. I'm trying to think if it's the same as like the Ghostbusters generation that like grew up with these movies around this specific time that are really latched onto it. And that's with any generation. I'm sure there's movies from our generation that we latch onto more than any others. Like that really awfully CGI'd kids movie with the girl that gets trapped in the haunted house by her bully brother that no one remembers what it's called, and she gets adopted by the ghost in the house. That comes on like every year at Cartoon Network. People are biased for that one, or like Casper is our generation or whatever else. So there's always
shout out to Casper.
Yeah, which Casper though? The original or the one with Hilary Duff?
I'm gonna say original, but I got a soft spot for Hilary Duff.
They're both of them are fine, but like every generation's got their ones that they latch onto, whether it's Halloween Town or Casper, or for those with bad taste, Hocus Pocus. So I think there's a certain generation that really latches onto Poltergeist, and I'm sure there's a whole generation of people that were traumatized by clowns via Poltergeist. I'm just not one of them. I did have a terrified fear of clowns phase like any other kid, because clowns are creepy, but I kind of grew out of that. But I know a lot of people are afraid of the clown from Poltergeist. It just didn't do anything for me. I've heard, I think it's Poltergeist 3? It might be an Exorcist situation where you skip the second one and then the third one's fine. I can't remember. But yeah, Poltergeist didn't do anything for me. But in terms of iconic haunted house movies, that's probably the go-to. Besides Amityville Horror. That's like the other like major go-to.
Yeah. So which one? Which one are you putting on here?
The original with James Brolin.
Okay. No, that's fine. I wanted to make sure because it's one of those that's been redone over and over and over again.
And as much as I love Ryan Reynolds, just no.
I get such a whenever Ryan does horror movies, I get such a Marky Mark vibe. Marky Mark and what is The Happening?
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch?
What movie? What's the M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Yeah, The Happening.
Yeah, it is Happening. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if y'all haven't seen The Happening and you need a good laugh, go watch The Happening.
although, Josh and I think we've cracked the code of The Happening of why people act stupid in that movie or can't act, and it's so big-brained that it's just us breaking out our tinfoil hats because we wanted to justify why we wasted 2 hours of our life. But yeah, Amityville
there's a video on that for anybody want to go dig deep in the Uncharted media archives. There's a OG
at some point I'm sure we'll revisit The Happening, which we still got to figure out what we want to do this month for 5 Good Things, guys. You should pick a Halloween movie for us out there. If you know anything you want us to watch, or you can watch along with us, comment below. We'd like to hear from you guys. We haven't set in stone what 5 Good Things we should do this month. But the Amityville Horror is like the stereotypical haunted house movie. It's also the stereotypical watch the original and pretend the rest of them didn't happen, like Texas Chainsaw or Nightmare on Elm Street. Some people might say Halloween. To those people, I say you're wrong, and I'll punch you in the face. All of them are wonderful, except for 6, 8, Rob Zombie, and maybe 3 and 5, and some of them. They're not all great, but
Nathan, don't think I'm gonna let you off the hook for sending me that Busta Rhymes tweet earlier this week. Okay, that is great, and I cannot accept Busta Rhymes not enjoying the fact that he's in that movie.
Please, that's not the funniest thing I've sent you this week. That I still can never keep a straight face with that TV meme that I sent you.
Oh, yeah.
Can't put that down.
Oh, man. Honestly, sometimes I feel like we should just like share the memes that we share to each other somewhere. Cause
there's one that I was physically in pain when I watched it because I was like, oh, I relate to this too much. It's like the same guy that did the TV skit that I sent you was every film student ever. And the guy's just like, hi, actors. So I just rented this camera from the university and I don't know how to use it. So if you guys could just stand around and talk for 2 to 3 hours, that'd be great. I don't really know what I'm doing with this camera, but I think we'll be fine with the ISO at 8,000. I think we'll be okay with the camera's internal microphone, to which at that moment I'm just going, nope, stop. This is too real.
Stop, what are you doing?
This is too real. I've been there, man. Where were we? Amityville. Amityville. Don't watch the sequels. It's, at this point, I don't know how many there are. And also, better question, who has the rights to Amityville, and can Blumhouse reboot it at this point? Because that's like in case of emergency, break glass and have Blumhouse try it. Looking at you, Friday the 13th. But that's more of a legal issue than anything else.
Real quick though, speaking of Blumhouse, have you seen? I need to get a hold of them, but they dropped they're going to drop 4 free horror movies that they made.
5. They're calling it the Blumhouse or something like that.
Yeah, and they're all all original, super original stuff. Do you know where they're going to be releasing them?
I think Amazon. I'm not sure.
Okay, because I need to keep track of that because some of the trailers looked really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's Blumhouse. So.
Yeah. So I've got 3 more. How many you got?
I got 2.
All right, I'll go with my one of my third, because I feel like our last two are this exact same, and that makes
Yeah,
me,
I
I'm
think so
totally
too.
fine with that. Um, my my outside shot though is a movie that's like widely regarded as the best haunted house slash quarantine movie of all time, but Josh and I both can't stand it. However, I love the sequel, The Shining. Um,
Shing.
I I've been roasted before and I don't care. I don't like The Shining. I don't like the TV series either, but it's so slow. And people are like, it's to build up suspense and tension. I'm like, well, I don't feel tense. But that's the thing is tension and suspense is supposed to take you from calm to nervous and uneasy as the film progresses. Since it's Jack Nicholson, I'm immediately not okay because he just
Yeah.
makes me uncomfortable, and I think that's the biggest problem for me with The Shining is The Shining is supposed to be Jack Torrance's descent into madness. It's played by Jack Nicholson. The man starts at a 9 and just goes to a 10. It's not that leap of a crazy there. It's it doesn't no part of it scares me. I've seen The Shining like 3 times in my entire life, and every single time I watch it, I struggle to stay awake. I really do. It's so slow burn, but also it's just Kubrick has done better. And there's better horror movies. Like, I really don't mind slow burn. I like slow burn and complex stories. I just think that The Shining movie missed the point. And before you're like, well, you just didn't get it. On the flip side, I love Doctor Sleep. Right now, I have a Doctor Sleep poster in our living room for like our Halloween decorations and everything else. I really like Doctor Sleep, but maybe that's my Mike Flanagan bias showing for Haunting of Hill House and Hush and everything else. But I think he did a really good job of merging the Shining movie with the Shining book, and finding a good middle ground and understanding the core principles of what The Shining was supposed to be and transporting that onto Danny Torrance. Did you get around to seeing Doctor Sleep yet?
I haven't yet. It's on my list.
Without giving too much away for you, Danny in this embodies a lot of Jack towards the end of the movie, and they kind of do Jack as he was supposed to do. It finishes not only Danny's story well, but it finishes Jack's story, I think, in a way, in a really interesting, good way. But that's not a haunted house movie. It's just a follow up to the Shining book as well as the movie, which is an incredibly hard task to do. But I think you would really appreciate Doctor Sleep, even as someone that doesn't like The Shining like me.
Fair enough.
Um, which of our two? Because I guarantee you they're the same.
All right.
What should we do first? The more serious and mature, or the kids one?
Let's start with the kids one because I think it is extremely underrated and no, I personally don't see anybody talking about Monster House.
I think I can tell you why it's underrated, and it's the number one reason why and I think I'm not alone in this, why a lot of people avoided it. Animation's terrifying.
It's weird.
The animation in this is kind of off-putting if you're not used to it. You do have to get acclimated to it. It's kind of like Into the Spider-Verse in that sense. Into the Spider-Verse is visually gorgeous, but since you've never seen something like that before, you do have to take a minute or two to get acclimated to that visual style, and Monster House was definitely that way. It was kind of somewhere between like a Tim Burton meets Paranorman somewhere,
No,
hodgepodge.
I'd agree with that.
And if
It
you're
was
not
like
used
if
to it,
they-
it's weird.
Yeah, it was like if they tried to animate a claymation movie
Yes.
instead of doing claymation.
Which claymation isn't for everybody just off the bat.
Yes.
But what is it about the Monster House that stands out to you?
Where to start, dude? First of all, the house itself is awesome, and I love the story. I think we say this all the time. I love the story behind the house, but I think the thing that and as wacky as it gets towards the end, the thing that I think I appreciate the most about it is that the main kid knows something's up, and he's smart, and he's like, no, there's something going on with this house, man. I know I'm not crazy. to the point that like the babysitter don't believe, the cops are like almost seem to be in on it, like, you know what I mean, like it's the kid has almost all the odds stacked against them, and then they get trapped in the house, and then it's all just story from there. So I think I appreciate that they allow their characters to be, I'm going to say, as authentic as possible.
Yes, they do feel like actual kids, but also the kids aren't idiots. Well, one of them is an idiot, but not dumb.
That's like,
He's the lovable idiot. It's the Harry,
yeah,
Ron, and Hermione formula, more or less, except Harry and Hermione end up together in this movie, which is what they should have been in the original version, but whatever.
yeah,
But unlike the other haunted house movies we've talked about so far, this house is literally alive, and that might turn some people off in the end, which, spoiler alert, the house kind of... What's that story that they first introduced us to in Arthur about the house with the chicken legs, like the Baba Yaga or something?
yeah, something like
That's
that.
kind of what I was picturing, because the house actually comes alive. But some of the designs for the house are so clever and inventive, but at the same time creepy, but like the right amount of creepy. Like if I was
Hmm.
introducing a kid to horror, I would probably introduce them to Monster House first, of like, here, dip your toe in the water, not like push them head first into like Audition or Goodnight Mommy or
Yeah, oh Lord, no.
Sinister or
Or
Hostel
Autopsy of Jane Doe, or yeah,
or Hush,
yeah.
or I don't know. Not that Hush is one of the best of all time, but it's very tense. Um, yeah. What else can we say about Monster House? It's just I was so off it for a while. Just didn't hate it. Just was never high on my radar. And then I finally watched it. I was like, I feel like I've missed something. Now I actually have an annual tradition Halloween movie alongside like
Yeah.
Halloween, Batman versus Dracula, and some of my other ones that I watch every single Halloween.
I think what one of the weirdest parts about it is, and this, I'm gonna put this along with that the animation is so unique. The I can feel like the crispness of the air
It feels
when
so Halloween.
yeah, like I don't know how to describe it. Like when you're watching it the coloring, and just everything about the environment, it just feels like, yeah, that's how I remember Halloween being growing up. I mean, now granted, Halloween for me is a little different, being that I grew up in Texas, but um, I mean, I've lived in Illinois for 4 years, so I've
It's
had actual good Halloweens. But
it's like to me how Trick or Treat may not be the best Halloween movie ever, but it's one of the best Halloween the holiday movies ever.
yes,
These movies just ooze the holiday spirit. Um, and I think that's one of my favorite things about Monster House is it just feels like fall and Halloween, and like you said, you
hmm,
can just feel like the crunch of your leaves beneath your feet and everything else. It feels lived in. However,
yes,
I'm sure our top pick for the best, our favorite at least, haunted house movie is not the top of other people's lists. Because this movie is vastly underappreciated. Primarily because it's technically not a haunted house movie. It's a haunted room movie. I'm, of course, talking about The Room, starring Tommy Wiseau. No, it's...
no. I was like, at first I was like, wait, that's not who's in this movie. Hold on.
Are you sure you don't want to check out the 1408?
No,
You did
no,
not check out. You did
no,
not.
no, no, not feeling it. Not feeling it. And so we, of course, are talking about 1408, starring Jan Cusack. I'm
$2.
I am refraining from saying co-starring Samuel L. Jackson, seeing as that he's in it for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes.
But he shows up in a mini fridge. What more do you want?
Oh Lord. Oh, Nathan, you want to tell us what this movie is about there, bud?
You forget he was in a mini fridge for a scene. So,
Yeah, no, I know. It's just like there's so much about that movie that like I just forget about, and then mainly because a lot of it's very traumatic.
also, as we get into this, it is so critical that when we're talking about this, to note that we have seen the theatrical version. There's two radically different versions of this movie in terms of its endings, that depending on what ending you get, you will have much different experiences with this movie, because I've seen the alternate version, and I'm not going to lie, I would hate this movie if I got the ending that has been pumped out to most platforms nowadays. So I don't know how we have seen the theatrical version, because that's the far better version, but like the director's cut, the version he intended or whatever, is the version that most versions have, and it's so much worse. So the director's cut, the one that's in a whole bunch of places, is John Cusack. We'll get into more in the story in a little bit, but John Cusack dies in the room setting on a fire, stopping it from anybody else ever being in the room, and he makes a sacrifice but destroys the room in the process. And so everyone's at his funeral, and his wife is at his funeral, whatever, goes to see his casket, and he like does a quick jump scare out of the coffin, and I'm going, are you kidding me? So the better ending is the version we have seen. Without giving away the ending that we have seen, the story is John Cusack is a writer about scary and haunted locations. So he goes to various hotels and places that claim to be haunted and writes basically puff pieces about them to drive up tourists. But throughout the movie, you get an understanding of why he is always doing this, because we find out he used to be a writer of a different genre entirely, and someone comes up to him one day and is like, I liked your old stuff. It felt like someone different entirely. And as the movie progresses, you understand why he has made such a dramatic shift in his life. It's almost like he's looking for evidence of something in his own life. It's not to get too religious or anything on the podcast, but it's a man who has lost his faith, that it's essentially looking for it again, and is there's a great dissection of this that I might have to send you, Josh, but analyzing the movie, he actually goes through all of Dante's Inferno to get redemption again, to get his, more or less, his faith back. But it's not a Christian film at its core. It's about as Christian of a movie as like Book of Eli. The subtext is there if you want it, but it does not skimp on the horror. I remember when we first saw it, there's a scene with he looks out the window and sees someone in a window across from him, and then something shows up in his room. We jumped sky high so hard, we almost made Sky High 2 a thing. But it's so masterfully crafted and masterfully acted by John Cusack, because for by and large, he's carrying this whole movie by himself as the only one in the hotel. And of course, it's based off a Stephen King movie. It's, to me, a better version of The Shining, because it's more tight and focused, and also you feel like you're going crazy just like John Cusack. Not to the level of like The Lighthouse, where you're questioning your sanity as you're watching it, going, everything is messed up and I have no idea what's happening. But it's like, when he comes into the room for the first time, he's just like, this is it? And you're kind of with him, because it's just a regular hotel room. But it's like an onion. You peel back the layers. It's like an ogre. You're peeling back the layers. And it just gets weirder and weirder. And he goes on this journey of self-discovery and more or less kind of acceptance of maybe he wasn't as present as he should have been. Maybe he wasn't as good as he should have been. It's much more layered and complicated than we can ever express, but it's so masterfully done and so criminally underrated, because I think people are expecting a traditional horror movie, and it is far from a traditional horror movie in every sense.
And in a lot of senses, it amps things up, like, hardcore. Like, it takes a lot of things to a whole nother level. I'm just, like, even thinking of, especially with its comparison to Dante's Inferno, like, it ends up ending in such a cold place. I mean, there's even like a section of the movie that where you think it's over, and you like, and it's kind of like the inception of like, hey, do you remember how you got here? And he's like,
I remember when we watched that. I remember the first time we watched it, and we found out that he was where he was, and we're like, oh my gosh.
And I remember watching it still to this day, and that still gets me, because
I'm going, oh yeah, he's still in.
Yeah, like, oh man, okay, all right. God, it's just such a good the way that the it's so clever that the way that the room interacts with him.
And it is very clearly haunted. The whole Dolphin
Yes.
Hotel is not haunted. It's just that room, but we're limiting it to it's part of the haunted house. It's the haunted residence, as Samuel L. Jackson said. It's an evil room. In the only way Samuel L. Jackson can say it, we'll put it that way. But even in his limited role, also in the Dante's Inferno video that I'll send you after, there's little clues even before he gets to the room that kind of set things up for later. There's very few details that are ever truly forgotten about in this story. It's so good, very tight, confined, but also on the surface it can be your stereotypical horror movie. But if you start to peel back the onion ogre layers, there's a lot of interesting story to tell that really makes you think about a lot of things, and that's
Mhm.
a good horror movie should make you think, despite what you may think.
Yeah, no, I mean because it's what have we have always said that uh, studios seem to think about horror movies. They're cheap to make, and you make a lot of money, and you don't have to put a lot of effort into them. I would disagree. I think it's the one genre that to really make a successful horror movie, you have to put a lot of thought into it.
I think there was an interview with Mick Garris, who directed Hocus Pocus. I love him as an interviewer. I just don't like Hocus Pocus. Mick Garris has this great podcast where he interviews horror icons, and he interviewed Mike Flanagan, and Mike Flanagan basically said, before you have a horror movie, you have a drama, and you need to nail down your drama before you nail down your horror, because horror can be cheaply made and everything else, but it can also be your most stripped back of you have the least amount of stuff to work with from a storytelling perspective. If you have basically a sentence as your story pitch and you have to kind of work from that, like 1408, it's basically just one man in a room. How do you tell a narrative and how do you make that scary and everything else? And that really works. It makes you dread that room, and it's outstanding. It's so good.
Oh, I agree. Completely agree. There's not a lot. I don't think there's anything I would change about that movie either. 'Cause,
Nope.
like even just the hints that Samuel Jackson gives to Johnny Q,
$2.
$2, leading up to him getting into the room, are very much like even like as an audience member, you're like you're with Johnny and you're with John Cusack. You're like, yeah, that doesn't sound real. There's no way that's real.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think? What are some of your all-time favorite horror movies that are set in a haunted house or haunted location? Let us know in the comments below. Always like hearing from you guys. And as always, if you like what you hear and you want to hear more, subscribe to us on whatever audio platform you're listening to us on, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can now check out our pitch off video. We'll have more short form videos that are going to be less labor intensive than pitch off coming in the coming weeks. 5 Good Things at some point will be coming this month, something Halloween related. So we got that coming for you guys. Looking forward to sharing it with you guys. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.